I mean, the world came crashing down for me. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I didn't want to give up. So at that point, made the leap of faith and said, you know what, I'm going to go all in, join the program. And they'd be like, hey, Dad, you didn't yell at us once today. You weren't angry with us. And this program has helped me realize that these conversations, with the excavation modules, the teachings we go, when you implement that, it's not, you can do it with the kids. I think if I didn't join this, I'd be divorced, right?
Hey, welcome everybody to today's interview. I'm not in my normal setup. We are actually moving, changing our base of operations, but I have a client with us from the turnaround program, and I just wanted to make sure, especially after Valentine's, just after all the post-holiday woes that go on in the world, just wanted to capture his success and spread a message of hope for everybody out there, and just wanted to capture his experience with us over here at the turnaround program. So with that being said, um, we'll just kind of dive right into it, just like all the other ones. And hey, man, so what was happening in your marriage that made you look for help?
So I discovered that there was that my wife had an AP. It was so I work away a lot, and I, for whatever reason, I don't know why, had a Ring doorbell, saw somebody had been there, and really at that point, I mean, the world came crashing down for me. I didn't know what to do, and then I looked a couple different places. Thought, I did. I found this. I found the Heroic Husband book online, and to be honest, had no idea what it was about because you don't look for something till you need something. At least I don't. And then read the book. Kind of did. I joined the. I think it was the. You guys have that seven. I think it's the 7-day fast track, or I might get that wrong, but it was the quick and eat. Get the book, get a 7-day fast back, watch some videos, and I was like, okay, I've got some ideas. Let me get home and see what's going on. As far as joining the turnaround program, it took me some time. I went home. I had a conversation with my wife about it, and actually at one point joined or signed up to go to they call it it was Hope Restored. It's like a marriage retreat or marriage intensive, you can call it, and that's designed to help couples that are struggling. It's more Catholic based. So I joined. We did that, and to be honest, it might have had some good things, and I think looking back, it probably did help somewhat, but also it was, now I know it was the added pressure. It was not the right time to do that. And I was not in the right place for that. I know that now, but again, didn't know that then. It just, you start trying to figure out what to do, when to do it, how to do it. It seemed like a good idea. I will say Noah told me not to put too much weight into that, you know, it, but I think it did help it, open up some things. There were some good things that came out of it. And then I think it was June. So I did that retreat, I think maybe May. But then in June, I realized I still needed something more. So I joined the turnaround program. And a lot of it was because, one, I didn't feel that the AP, I felt the AP was still there. I didn't know what else to do, but I knew I didn't want to give up. So at that point, made the leap of faith and said, you know what, I'm going to go all in, join the program. Because I think I did join like the VIP one that you guys had for a while. That was kind of like half in the water, where you're dipping your toe in. So I fully jumped in at that point, knowing I need more help.
Awesome, man. And for everybody, because I can't get I can't get sir and ma'am out of me in the military, and I can't get acronyms out of me in the military. So we have plenty of acronyms. AP stands for Affair Partner, just for everybody to know. But I love that, man. I love that. So what was that final deciding point? Was it being in that little VIP kind of section that we had for you guys at that time? Or was it just something that you heard, something that I told you? What was it that you finally took that step forward and went all in?
I mean, looking back, initially, I think my initial thing was, I still felt that the affair partner or AP was in the picture. I felt, you know, that I was losing my wife and I needed something more. And I kind of sat back and looked, and to be honest, like dipping into the VP thing, it was like part of it was I looked back and said, what am I willing to do? Yeah, the program, is going to, there's some expenses to it, but, I look back at what I do and I said, this is worth it. I need more help. I was in some of the calls and you do see some of the progress being made. You can get on the web pages. So I just wanted something more. I felt deep down I needed a little bit more, that I wasn't quite figuring it out on my own. And that was a big thing, admitting that wasn't figuring it out on my own. I mean, I know for me, where I work, I'm in charge of a lot of people, in charge of an operation. So you kind of roadblock yourself sometimes. And I admitted to myself that I don't have the tools to move forward. And that was the big thing joining there. I think, there was the little things like not feeling that she was seeing things or not feeling the AP was truly out there, even though she might have said it was done. I didn't feel it was done. I suspected things were still going on, and I felt like I still needed to improve me, but also fight for the marriage.
I love it, man. I love it. All right, man. So since joining, what were the result? Oh no, actually, because you talked about the marriage intensive before we get into that. So because you did try different things, and look, I'm Catholic. You guys know I'm Catholic. I talk about it sometimes on the YouTube channel and all that whatnot. We don't necessarily like make it super obvious and well known that like, oh, we have Christian perspective, so on and so forth with what we do. But content, emails, everything I talk about, you can definitely tell and you can see where I come from. But what made the approach with the turnaround program and the heroic husband different from everything else that you'd seen or tried?
So I think so for me, with the retreat, it does talk, they have things about, some similarities where they talk about how you have to go into a conversation, how you and your wife need to communicate. They do highlight, and I think, I've shared it on the program, some of the things that we found out about that, like they call it like your good self versus you just say angry self. Like, how do you enter a conversation when you're mad and upset? We call it triggered. Or how do you enter the conversation when you're in your heroic husband mindset? Didn't know, obviously those are things I know now, but when I what the difference is I think this program kind of, well, one, you're pretty direct. The retreats, I won't say they're, you know, pixie, they go and they're direct, but you're really direct with us. When we put something out, you lay it out. If it's on Voxer or we put something on the turnaround program, you pretty clearly let us know if we're messing up. And sometimes colorful words are used and I think as guys, what I've seen from here, that's the approach we need. Sometimes we just have to be reminded that we're messing up. We're just not doing it. And with this, it really made me look at me. It because I think, I'll say this here, I think most of us who are dealing, if our wives have an affair partner, instantly we go to it's her fault. And I did that. I think I'll say I think most people will do that. If you're being cheated on, you think it's her fault. You think the answer is pack your bags and leave. I do think being Catholic helped me put a pause on that and decide, I know that the church, and this is different, but for me, the church teaches that, you stay in the marriage. I know I've always said I want it, but here I am. I think that pause allowed me to look at it. Once I joined the program, then I started unearthing things I was doing wrong, things I did to create an environment to make her feel that things were over, things weren't good, and then she created, her reality or her false reality, her fantasy with the AP. Not saying it's right, but there's a lot of things I did to add to that. And I would never have seen those without this program.
Yeah. No, and I completely Like, my heart goes out, especially because we usually have a high amount of people. I would say it's about like a 60-40 split with people who have affairs, or either they have the affair or there's affair from their wife's side. And the biggest thing that I've seen that really cuts through that, especially after all the years, is compassionate leadership, is really understanding like, hey, it's not okay. We understand it's not okay. The biggest thing about affair partners is the compassionate leadership of understanding that, especially nowadays, it's not okay, right? We have to own our side of the things and understand what happened, because it's a concept that we call emotional residue, where people don't even know that this is happening, where things literally carry over from past relationships. And when we do the deep work that we do here, we see that a lot of stuff does come from the past and it gets brought up, especially when we get into excavations and we start communicating with our wives, that there's also past trauma from her as well, especially when we talk about the three development stages of everything. So that's like extremely important. I'm really glad that you hammer home on that, because like it's not that it's okay, but it's how you lead moving forward. And we don't want that energy, that emotional residue to carry on into everything else that we do. That's the biggest thing. So I love that, man. I love it. Now, uh, with being with us, what results have you achieved since joining?
So, I mean, I think the biggest, so results for me, because I started realizing what some of my, you know, underlying triggers, some of my ICTs, those, the things you keep at, and I know in the beginning, so I'll say in the beginning, I know I didn't dig deep enough, and I probably didn't have that. I'll admit it that I didn't, some of it, like you always say, it's woo woo. And some of the things you read through there and you're like, yeah, I'm not doing that, or that's not me. I'm going to say, do it, because if you don't, you're going to go back, do it, and then say, why didn't I do this a month ago? Why didn't I do this 2 months ago? And I know I probably heard it. And like everybody else, like, that's not for me. I don't need that. The answer is you do need it, or else you can't fully unearth what the underlying root causes are. And for me, I did realize there were some things from the past where, you know, not, had this belief that doesn't matter what I do, women that I care for leave. And that stemmed from, my mom dying. She passed away when I was really young, you know, then my dad remarried. And so things like that just taught me subconsciously that women leave. And that obviously that was feeding into the problems. Didn't know that, but now I do. Some of the other things is, this belief, that immediate family was put above her in ways. Didn't, and all, some of all these, as you've mentioned to me, Noah, brought it back to, those were some of them are surface level, but the biggest thing under there was, women leave, or she's going to abandon me, she's going to betray me. And those thoughts, and, without knowing it, those things forced me to do the things I did, which were shut down, isolate myself, not talk to her anymore. And we talked, but we didn't talk. It wasn't adult conversations. It wasn't open conversations about what's going on. Because at that point, if she wasn't talking to me or asking questions, "Oh, okay, everything's good." But it also led to, being angry a lot, and even putting that, because my wife mentioned this to me, she felt like I no longer wanted to be there, that I wasn't present when I was home. And she honestly, when the AP was brought up, her answer was, well, I just didn't think you would care. And those things all struck me as like, well, why would she think that? And this program helped me go and look back and say, well, duh, this is why. And there were a lot of things I was doing that I wasn't present. I wasn't being there. Some of it seemed little, but when you dig under it, and you got to get to those things. And that program really helped me, in my opinion, kind of look at it. Probably took longer than it should. Maybe it didn't, but things all line up where they need to. But buying in, you got to really buy in fully and do the modules. I know we've added things since I've been on, but go through, do the work, post it. Don't be embarrassed about it because chances are whatever you posted, somebody else has done it, posted it. It's just getting really it's getting over I call it the what's it, our ego, my ego. We're men and we just have this thought process of, well, we're gonna fix that on our own. We don't need any help. But this help is well worth it.
Yeah, I love it. And especially for you, and I kind of want to like, so with some of your results, right? I know you were just recently intimate with your wife again. But not just that, like if you can kind of speak to how this doesn't just affect like your relationship. So like what are the total life results that you've seen? Like from your kids, from work, from the relationship, like what have you experienced?
I was a lot more short fused with my kids, a lot more intense when it came to little things. And early on, I think this program helped me initially better with them. It was easier to initiate the conversations with them where I think one of the best examples is one of my boys got into an advanced math. And when he started school this past year, I was spending 2 hours a day on the phone with him where some of they would anticipate me being angry or just not being present. But I'd spend that time and be like, hey, we got this, we'll do it. And I've even heard from them a few times where things they'll do, like we went, me and the boys would go, and this, it kind of hurt, but felt good at the same time. We'd go spend a day together, and they'd be like, hey, Dad, you didn't yell at us once today. You weren't angry with us. And this program has helped me realize that these conversations, with the excavation modules, the teachings we go, when you implement that, it's not, you can do it with the kids too. And, starting there is probably easier. You talk with them, you can implement it, you can step back, regulate yourself and ask, well, what am I getting angry about? They're kids, probably same thing I did. And even being at work, I wasn't always engaged probably as much as I should. Now it's more so I make time for them. I make myself available without putting the pressure there. If you need my help, call me. I'm here. I can be available for that. So I think that's for the kids, and also like realizing that, yeah, I was probably shutting down or doing more of so I make time now. And I think one of the biggest things is it's very easy with these, I happen to be on my phone doing this, but it's very easy when I would sit down at night, say, hey, we're going to watch TV or we're going to hang out tonight as a family, but you're on your phone. And that seemed, it's very easy to do that, but you're there, but it's not quality. It's not good time. And put the phone down, hang out. And I know that also was a big thing for my wife is like, we're going to sit down and watch a movie. Why even be there if we're both on, or if you're going to be on your phone and things. So realizing those things, realizing those little things. And then it does help here at work. I just got offered a promotion and I've been able to utilize the stuff I've learned. I know a year ago this would not have worked as well. I probably would have just said, no, I'm not moving. It's too, but her and I have worked through this, the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I think one of the big things it's been me and her, the boys have had some input, but it's been her and I working on it, talking through these things, even to a point of me, I think one of the things grew up where my dad, just living with him, where we didn't have heaps of money coming in. So I think I didn't mention it, but that was one of my other big things is no matter how much money I have, it's never enough. If I make a big expenditure, that was a trigger of mine. I know that now. So her and I have had some pretty good conversations about what we're doing, the difference moving from one state to another, one city to another. And that's been very helpful here, learning these things because I've been able to apply it without, in the past, I would either just shut down, said, yeah, or I would have made a decision if she said, hey, let's do this. I would have said, okay, without any forethought. We'll fix it when we get there, which has been the problem. So we kind of reversed that and we've worked through a lot of things to where and I think I put this on, my anxiety was definitely there for this being a change. It's a massive life change, but my anxiety level has definitely gone down working through the process this way.
I love it, man. I love it. It's a especially with where you're at, man. It's a lifestyle. So I love it. Renaissance man comes in through and through. Love it, man. So when you were, because you did kind of dabble a little bit, right? So what were your expectations kind of going in to the turnaround program versus what actually happened?
So I know, so I'll be, it's listed at, hey, here's your 12-week turnaround program, or here's this, I will say now that I probably expected something to happen, maybe like, I won't say instantly, but I'm like, oh, I'm going to this program. Yeah, a couple months, we should be good. And, you know, I will say there are in it, as I know you say it, you let us know, there are folks who get into it and within 2 weeks it turns around. There's folks who get into it and it's taking a little bit longer for me. And I think, yes, probably coming into it, I know we're not supposed to have, there was an expectation. And until you kind of realize, like, okay, this could take more time. And you got to realize, I think this is important because I thought about this when you asked to do the interview. I know I got into the program with some other guys who saw instant results. I won't say instant, they saw results quickly. And then that gets in your mind. And you can't let that because you don't know all the details behind what's going on with them. You don't know how long the hurt and pain was there for their wives versus yours. And you don't know how deep, like for me, I didn't know how deep some of these hooks and ICTs and triggers were until you really dive into it. So that's something to be aware of, not saying, well, hey, man, he got his results and I've seen his posts and he hardly posts and he gets results and I'm here every day. So, that's, as you said, you're putting a goal line. You're defeating yourself before you start. It's the same as if your whole mission is to win your wife back. Every time there's a little sidestep from her, you've defeated yourself. And I think that was hard for me to realize and accept.
Yeah. I love that, especially because like that's why we give you guys so many channels of feedback, right? Because like you might not be posting too much. Obviously, Noah's gonna say it until I'm blue in the face. Post, do your action steps, keep doing it, keep showing up. Um, but also people don't see the boxers. And like you said, like you don't know the battles that are actually there. That's why I tell you guys, like in the very beginning, do the modules, make sure you consume them, make sure you understand, do your action steps. Because yeah, at first, and for the audience, like when it comes to like the spiritual, when it comes to like the deeper teachings within the subconscious, you'll always hear me call it like woo woo. And some people go, all right, whatever. But there's a reason. Like I've done my own brain surgery for years, like digging deep. I'm a part of a concept in our shifting process is the Renaissance man. I have literally been studying, reading, thinking through philosophies, thinking through theologies, all types. And like we talked about earlier, right? I'm Catholic. It's not just Catholicism, right? I've gone and looked at other stuff and read other things. At a point, I was an atheist. At another point, I was agnostic. And then, I came to my own journey. And so I kind of intimately understand this. And that's why I love the honesty, man, because yeah, at first you're like, no. And then you're like, maybe. And then you're like, okay, yeah, I got to. And that's part of the surrender process. And that's totally awesome, man. I love that. I love that. So so then what surprised you the most about the process? That's a good question.
But it is a good question. I think, so the process, I mean, I think now when I look back at it, it's very, I won't say simple, but it's set up. And I think, you've said this before where you build upon everything. So you don't just go in and say, I'm talking to my wife and we're going to fix it this, or I'm talking to, there's a lot of steps. And now I understand like why we, I understand the kind of why it's set up where, all right, we're going to go in, we're going to fix you, we're going to look at you as an individual. You're going to start doing these things. And it seems very much like, well, no, I need to be fixing something else. No, you need to start with you, and I, realize that, hey, yeah, I needed to go in and do that. And I think the surprise is when as you said, surrender, trust. If you give into the process, the results are there. When and I know you've said this to me, to others, it's out there everywhere is don't worry, don't, you can't worry about what she's doing. You can't worry about, she's not, acknowledging what I've done or she's not seeing the change because no, she is. Um, they may, she may not say it, you may not feel it, but she's definitely seeing it. Um, and when you start doing it for you as opposed to an end result or having that goal line of, oh, I'm doing this for her. No, you're doing it. You got to do it for yourself or it doesn't work. And I think that's part of this, you can call it surrendering, giving in, or just realizing like this is there for a reason. It has worked. It will work, but you kind of have to trust yourself. And I think in a way, get out of your own way. I know for me, that was part of it too. Allow it to work without trying to roadblock yourself or do things that you're doing before. Cause it's easy enough to, have those setbacks or, I know I've felt it a couple times where it's like, why am I doing this? You know, it would be, in my mind, and it's the old pattern that we fight against it, it would have been, I say, caught myself saying it would be easier to just leave, find a girlfriend and start over. But that was the roadblocks. That was part of the old me trying to think it's protecting or, you know, making you close up again. And this program, when you keep, you reach out for the help or even put on Boxer, you might get yelled at for these things, but put it on Boxer, get the help, put it on the community program. And then you find as you work through those, you're not stopping that thought. As you say, you're integrating it. You're rebuilding yourself, seeing those so you can identify it quicker and move on. And when you do that, things start to happen and you're like, whoa, what, you didn't do it. For me, some of the things came as like, oh, okay, I see, you know, I'm seeing better, she wants to hang out now. She's asking me to go shopping or, oh, we're going, you know, going to the thrift store to get things that don't happen if she's not willing to, see where things are going. So she was seeing the results, even though it might have not initially been the results I wanted.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's what I was telling you. I think I gave you like a pretty passionate boxer at one time. And then we'll kind of roll into this question about like feedback. So I remember I gave this kind of a passionate in the boxer to you, and it was a bunch of tough love because you were like getting in your own way. Because like, and I'll tell the audience this like. I say there's like a one third, one third, one third split. One third of women are totally about it and it's like gung ho and they're like all about it. One third of women are kind of like apprehensive and they're like kind of dipping their toe in, they're hot and cold, and then the other third of women are just fire and brimstone. But that's because they're protecting their feminine. And like we get like a high number of guys that go through this that get this validation. But on average, it's like 5% of men get this validation of like, she's not going to always tell you, hey, if we keep operating like this, like you will damage me. Like my psyche will get damaged. My feminine will get damaged. And I remember I told you once on a boxer that I was like, dude, like you're not going to get this big, like for you, you're not going to get this big old, oh, we're back together. Really, actually, it's about 20%. That's liberal, but 20% of men get that big old reconciliation, like, oh, we're reconciled. Normally it just gets better and then it gets really better, right? Like as you're currently seeing. So, and that's why I usually do the tough feedback style, because if I held your hand, I coddled you about it, well, then that's very easy to just what we call popcorn brain. You could just spiral and you could just loop into your own mind and just go down that negative path. But with that being said, man, what and then we'll wrap up with the last couple of questions. What do you think about Noah, me, style of feedback and the action steps that we give?
I think it works. If you may not, there may be times where you don't like it, and I'm sure. I think about you. You hear some stuff, and you're like, "What?" Especially, I know, and like you said, yeah, it was like you may not get this reconciliation, you may not get this, or you may not get this big. It's we're good again, and there's still part. At that point, I'm like, no, that's what do you mean? No, that should come. But I think your style's good for. I would say, I know for me, if you were kind of like you said, the not hitting those points. I think as most of us guys coming into here need that because without that, it'd be too easy to kind of like take it in stride. Where I think guys need that tough love, need that kind of in your face answer, or else it's going to be like we're not going to we're not going to take it. We're not going to work on that. We're not going to realize, oh no, he's right. This was bad. And I know we see it in the turnaround program, you know, and I've been around long enough. I'll see some posts and I'll be like, oh, here it comes. You see it and like, and I've responded to some guys like, hey, that was bad, this is that. And then you come in and like, no, this is why it's bad. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm sure they've had boxers on it that are probably less pleasant than that. And that's needed to kind of give you that wake up call to push you to realize you're not going into this enough. You're not seeing it. And you don't necessarily, you don't come out and say, hey, you're not, but you do it in a way where then when I look back at it, for me, I was like, I don't think I've given this enough weight, or I haven't put enough into this part. Or an example for me is conversations. I was having them, but there was still, and again, this came over time and it was all tied back to the same thing. If I have that tough conversation with her, that excavation, there's a possibility that, you know, I hear things. One, I might hear things I don't want to hear, or there was that fear that it's going to cause her to blow up, walk out. So, if it wasn't for you, I probably would have stayed on that caution side longer, as opposed to saying, no, here, some of them been raw, but you get it out there. And I think by getting it out there, it showed her that I was no longer afraid to talk or open up. Because as I think I told you before, growing up in a house of guys, you did not have those talks. You don't go in and open up emotionally. You don't say, hey, how are you just fix things. Or if you opened up emotionally, you got beat down by your brothers and stuff. So it just didn't happen, but it needs to happen. You know, we need to talk to our wives. We need to talk to our kids in that way and let them know that it's not this like hard, you know, an unemotional person living there. You can do all, and you bring it up plenty of times. You can do all those things to build the lowest level on the hierarchy, but that's never enough. And it takes I think it took a little bit for me to understand that, but once you do and implement it, you see the results.
Mhm. I love it, man. Okay, and then we will we'll wrap up with a last couple of questions. And so just to start, what would you say is your main takeaway from the heroic husband?
I mean, for me, I think there's a lot of tools that there's a lot of things I've learned here that we just didn't know. And I know you go through it all the time. There's ways to communicate, how to be present, what we should be doing as men and husband. Those things. not for fault of anybody, but I've learned there's a lot of things I've learned here that I want to teach my boys so they can be better. And I didn't know any of this, and I'm glad I found it because, I think if I didn't join this, I'd be divorced, right?
Now, would you recommend this program to other men?
I would. And to be honest, I think, and I think you probably said this too. This, unfortunately, most of us find this program when we get the kick in the face or punch in the, whatever, slap across the face, punch in the gut. You say however you want. To me, I think this program, this is something that people should join probably when they first get married. But I also see, I think this program is going to not be as effective for people until a lot of people wait till they get to that wall and then they know they have to do something. And that's when we do it. And I know that was for me too. I may not have joined this program if everything seemed okay, but I do think that the teachings here, the tools we learn, and the process that is taught would be great for, people getting into, they don't have to be in the relationship. They can start it before, but when you start a relationship and you think everything's perfect, you get in the marriage and you're in that, the honeymoon state. Well, this is something to start doing then to prevent it from hitting the wall.
Mhm. I love it,
But I
man.
would definitely recommend
Now,
it.
oh, perfect. Now, so, so I guess then who specifically would you say should join this and why would you tell them to join it?
I specifically, I mean, I'm not saying it's for everybody, but I think, I would say, okay, if Mike, if you were just raised in the house with your, say like a broken family, where if you were raised by just your dad or even just your mom, you're not going to have that full, you're not going to have that full building. I think the full emotional building that you would if you grew up in a mom, dad living together, everything, kind of a nice, good home like that. I think growing up with like me with just my dad, we got certain skill sets from him or got taught certain ways and he taught us the way he wanted to, but you in that case you don't have some of that compassion or that emotional um, background. You're more going to learn how to be a guy, get out there, fix it, make it right, and move forward. So I think this program could be for kids who grew up in a home like that. I think this can I say it could be for everybody. I think there's teachings in here everybody could learn. I don't think you brought it up, Night, where you don't go out and do some of the way it was. Nowadays, I think with technology, with these pads, with everything, you know, kids aren't learning that. They're too much into the just watching. And I think that's some of us are all that way with the phones. It's just too easy to lose yourself in that. Whereas this program kind of teaches you a way to come out of it, be able to sit down, be able to talk, learn what that quality versus quantity is when you spend time with the wife or the kids or even friends. And then, you know, you can do it on your own, but a lot of the books you recommend, they're really good when you read them. You're like, oh, why didn't I know this before?
I love it, man. I love it. Now, any final thoughts on Noah or the program?
I mean, for me, I'm just, I'm glad I found it. Um, I do feel that, as you said, everything there's, I feel that her and I we're in a much better place. I know for me, I've been able to look at things I was doing, things that caused me issues, even little things like, you know, people, you know, after all this, you start seeing like I started doing things that I hadn't done before, like looking at a ring camera or trying to track things. And those, those things got in my way. But this has made, I think doing this program, learning these things, it's made me, one, I know I've been more regulated. I know I've been, able to catch myself. Not always. It's not always going to be 100%, but I'm much in a much better place. I say equipped with the tools or the weapons to move forward and understand that, what I was doing, that's the knowledge and the base that I had before. Whereas now this is better. You know, I'm having adult conversation I call with the wife. We're having legit conversations, not just like, oh, okay, good day. Yeah, everything was good. You hang up. We're actually getting deeper into conversations. And the excavations, you don't have to have this big planned out. They kind of happen now where things come up. We talk about it. You go through the process, and I look back at some of the conversations, even with this move, those things are happening without having to plan them. And then just in general, her and I, the way we're able to hang out, together, even, you know, not feel like there's a brick of ice between us at night. Those are good things. Those are those moments and those wins that you have to continue to track so that you don't get discouraged, all the little things. And yes, we all want that. Oh, I want her to hold me, or I want this, I want the intimacy. But you and I know you've said this and I kind of took a while to catch on to it, but you want all those other things first so that when the intimacy is there, it's there for the right reason, not to like pacify you or make you feel like, oh, okay, because that can happen. You want it to be there because that's truly what she wanted. And it's a sign that things are moving the right way.
I love it, man. I love it. So I usually just give you guys like the floor for the last bit. Like, is there any message that you want to spread to anybody that's watching this, or say anything, maybe to even your past self, or anything like that, just to kind of spread that hope and that love to other people?
I mean, kind of mentioned it before, getting out of our own ways. I think that's a big thing to whatever that looks like. It's probably different for everybody else. But I think because, we come in this, most of us guys think we can fix it. We fix stuff, we do stuff. Probably most of us get here thinking, how did I get here? This shouldn't be happening to me. But you really gotta get over that and take some of that I guess you can call it humble pie and look at yourself and let the process work. Really, really follow the modules, really accept it. And it's easier, I won't say easy, but it's easy to say somewhat now because it took me a while to get here and I know that's what needs to be done. But I think the sooner you kind of buy into it and realize this is, these modules are there for a reason. Don't jump ahead, don't skip. I know you say that all the time, how many times, but you got to really do it. You got to understand it. And hey, go back. I've gone back and rewatched some of them because I'm like, wait, I'm going to go watch this again. Some of them I've rewatched because you said to. Others, I'm like, I need to go look at this again and really see what this meant. And even now, things are, for me, I feel good. I feel a lot better, more confident with where I'm at. I'm a lot happier than I was. And I got to a place where the big thing, I got to a place where if after doing all this, if she chose to leave, it wouldn't, I mean, I would have been upset, sad, but it wouldn't crush me. Whereas before joining here a year ago, it would have, I think it would have crushed me. Now, and I think that's also, that's probably that confidence that, okay, she can make her choice freely. I do, again, we don't think they're watching, but, in my mind, I feel a lot, me getting over that hump to where I was comfortable with her making her own choices was probably the biggest thing that allowed her to start stepping back in.
Love it, man.